Hello and welcome to Fulhamish. This is the very first episode. It's very exciting to be here. Thank you for downloading this podcast as we take like an informal sideways look at Fulham FC as it comes and goes. I've got an esteemed group of gentlemen who are going to delve into the world of Fulham FC with me this evening. We're going to start off with our very own Putney Peerlo, Mr. Farrell Monk. Good evening to you.
Good evening, Sammy.
Mr. Dominic Betts, I've got something to ask you in a second, but good evening.
Good evening, how are you, Sammy?
Very good, thank you. And he describes himself on Twitter as a utility man. He's definitely doing a job for us tonight, Mr. Jack Collins.
Hello, everybody. How you doing?
So, Dom, I received a tweet earlier today saying that you scored the greatest penalty ever at Craven Cottage on Saturday. What on earth is that about?
Well, I got a call on, must have been Friday afternoon, from someone at the club called Billy. I don't know what he does.
Right.
He must be in charge of organising the half-time. Sort of
Oh, you one of the half-time people?
And it was a blindfolded penalty shootout, so they called me about 35, 40 minutes, and then I sort of went onto the side of the pitch, came on at half-time once Ivan had done his introduction, saying scores at half-time, and so we had 3 blindfold penalties each. I took the first one, which is the one Liam's talking about. Yeah. And it was we went straight into the bottom corner. It was actually better than Clayton Donaldson's penalty, only in half, actually. But no, I don't know how it went in, because I literally had no idea what was going on. Obviously, I'm blindfolded by this Fulham scarf. And then it went straight into the bottom corner. I heard the cheers, and then obviously all my friends were videoing it. It's actually saw how good the penalty was. And then apparently the other guys' 3 penalties were just horrific. Like, they went miles wide. I think my second one was saved and the third one was missed. But yeah, apparently it was like one of the best penalties according to Liam. You know Liam Farrell.
Might well do.
Yeah, that is seen at Craven Cottage.
Christ, that is incredible. Well, first of all, let's start off by discussing Saturday's game. When we started this podcast, I was really hoping, we'd been so good up to now, 8 games in all competitions, unbeaten. I thought, brilliant, we'll start this podcast, we're on good form, it's all going to be great. We'll go into the game against Birmingham City, we're red-hot favourites, and of course they let me down. So that was absolutely natural. What went wrong, guys?
What kind of stuck out to me was the fact that we just looked like a team that didn't know each other, but probably because they didn't even know each other, to be honest. Like, I mean, there were so many sort of people that's only had like a few starts for the club already, so many new faces, and they just didn't even know like probably each other's names to start off with. That's what it kind of screamed out to me.
Well, do you think we're a bit of a victim of our own passing game? Because certainly Michael Muddle's red card and the second penalty, which was eventually scored, was actually just sloppy play, passing round the back, and it led to a mistake. So maybe we overplaying in the defence, do you think, a little bit?
I don't necessarily think it was overplaying. We just didn't make our passes count. Like, it was a case of a lot of the passes were just either too short, to the wrong person, wrong decision-making, just really simple stuff. And it just happened time and time again. We weren't learning our lessons in the first, half an hour or so, and it kind of got better, and then the red card happened, and then it all fell apart again.
Jack, do you think it's all doom and gloom?
No, I don't. I don't think we're as bad as perhaps we're making out that we were either. But there are 2 things I thought about the passing game that was, interesting to note, and that is that for the first one, for the red card, we've got a free kick just inside their half on 44 minutes, and you've got TC who can drop a ball in anywhere, and Matt Smith up front on 44 minutes. We've seen that work before, like Newcastle, and one of those things where at that kind of time in the half, why play short and stupid if you have that sort of weapon at your disposal? And then for the second one, for the second penalty where we lost the ball, Button nearly loses the ball to Donaldson in the area, and I know Kevin McDonald's playing as a centre-half when he's a ball-playing midfielder, but at the same time, in that situation, get rid, and if you're not going to play that centre-half role, then why have we not brought on our new, £4 million international signing centre-half to fill that gap if McDonald's not going to, be comfortable in that role?
Dom, do you reckon it's dampened promotion hopes slightly? Because I think after the Blackburn game where, it was 94th minute winner, I think maybe some Fulham fans started to believe this season might be written in the stars, and I think people were singing Slavisha's praises. Not that people now are saying Slavisha should go or anything extreme like that, but do you think it's maybe put a bit more realism on our hopes for the season?
You've got to look at, bar Newcastle, who we've actually played in the league. The next hardest team we played was Cardiff at home, and obviously we drew that 2-2. I mean, Preston and Blackburn have both had pretty poor starts to the season, And I mean, the Blackburn game was one of the worst games of football I think I've watched in a long time. I mean, luckily we did score in the last minute through Tom Kearney. Preston, it wasn't even a great game either. Like, Sonny Lucas' goal was scrappy. Even it was a great run by Tom Kearney maybe for the first goal. Or was it second goal?
Second goal.
Yeah. And then Matt Smith has a shot, then luckily he gets the rebound and buries it. I think we haven't really analysed the teams we've been playing because they have been easy fixtures. And Newcastle was first game of the season, so that isn't exactly Newcastle at their best. As you can see, they've improved a lot recently.
Well, they've had a season exactly kind of like I expected them to. Shaky start, and then they lost to Huddersfield, who are looking like Barcelona at the moment. And then they've gone on and won 4 games in a row, whilst not looking that impressive. Surely that they're going to go on now and probably be one of the front runners after this.
Oh yeah, 100% they are. I think they're going to get top 2 quite easily with the team and even squad they have. But I mean, I think like if you look at the loss from Saturday, you have to give credit to Birmingham City and the way they Gary Rowett set them out. I think, yes, we didn't play to our best, but Birmingham were just set out so well to counteract our game. And I think a lot of teams are going to do that because they know what sort of football we're going to be playing on Djukanovic.
I think we said beforehand, like a lot of people said beforehand, that Birmingham were going to be a team that would frustrate us from the outset because, the way that Rowett sets up as a defensive unit. And then you look at the possession, I had something like 63% possession on Saturday. And we had 7 chances to their 22. I think that it was always from the outset going to be one of those games that we were going to struggle with a little bit because, that's the way that they play against the way that we play. We do dominate and we look for those breaks. And if they're going to sit in 2 banks of 4 and break, quickly, then we're always going to be in trouble. And I don't think that has been maybe discussed enough as such.
I mean, it's quite lucky, really. You've got 2 games coming up, though, that certainly are winnable. So a way to really get us maybe back on track looking upwards against Burton and Wigan, surely you've got to be expecting 4, even maybe 6 points out of one of those.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
And we should do. We do have a good enough team, and we've seen that we can play well on our day if everyone's on it. We just need to make sure that that Slavica, does he actually know what his best starting lineup is for a start? I don't think he knows. He's been chopping and changing a little bit. Everyone was raving about Cabano after his first game, and then all of a sudden he's on the bench second game. So he's probably not even sure what his best team is. But once those kind of things are ironed out, we've definitely got a talented team with lots of depth and all that's there. But it's going to take a few games for it to gel. So hopefully we can pick up 6 points from the next couple of games. And then just crack on from there, get the confidence back in the team, really.
If we think about, if we look ahead to Saturday against Wigan, it shouldn't be that hard because they've bought half a defence from last season. So on paper, it should be relatively easy. I mean, they have been conceding goals quite a lot this season, probably due to them signing half our defence from last season, specifically the left side.
But isn't it going to be a bit Fulhamish if they get a clean sheet this weekend?
Yeah, probably. And Burton, they haven't
Nice use of the word early doors.
Either, have they, Burton? I mean, they beat Derby at home a few weeks ago, and obviously, Clough was nominated for Manager Month as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
So they haven't exactly had a bad start, but you have to say Burton at home, we have to be winning that game. It's
100%.
Winning. I mean, the last time we played Burton, we only won on penalties, thanks to John Arisa banging it straight.
Oh, was that in the league? Was that in the League Cup?
It was the League Cup like 3 years ago.
It was our last season of the Premier League.
Yeah.
And didn't Roddy Yeager score
Roddy Yeager scored late.
Quite a nice goal, actually, towards the end of it.
The other thing is that Burton have, I think, if I'm correct, they've conceded 10 or 11 already this season. They've scored 10 or 11 as well, but they're up there with the the high scorers and the high conceders in the league, which is a bit what we were last year as such. But it's one of those where we should be able to exploit that defence, and if we can pull our back 4 together again. And one of the things about the weekend was we only conceded 1 despite we had 10 men, despite we were makeshift. We did look reasonably, aside from that Cottage chance 70 minutes or so, we didn't look like we were going to be sliced apart, even with 10 men.
And even created a couple of chances.
Exactly. So you'd hope that we could hold out Burton and, exploit their defensive weaknesses and, hopefully that'll play to our advantage.
Do you think this lack of scoring goals is going to be a concern? It's 8 goals in 7 games. Obviously, we're conceding a lot less than we did last season. Chris Martin, he came on in the second half for Matt Smith. To me, he was looking a little bit unsharp, maybe not full match fitness. Do you reckon he's going to take a few games before he maybe starts firing on all cylinders?
Yeah, I'd say once he gets back to his full fitness, but he's not there to do what the McCormack role is, which is score 30 goals a season. He's there to maybe get, 10, 15 goals. But we've got so many goals that our midfielders can score, or attacking players. So like Sonny Aluko, who can drop into midfield if he needs to. You've got Tom Kearney, who's always got a goal on him. You've got Niskins Cabano, Florida Ite, who are both pretty much direct, wide players with a bit of pace about them. So, I mean, I think his job is, yes, to score like 10, 15 goals, but a lot of his job will be to bring in the midfield players, so that because we know there's definitely goals there as well.
I feel like a more astute Matt Smith.
More astute
Like,
Matt
with a bit
Smith.
more of a footballing brain.
Well, he is, and what are we making of Matt Smith this season? He's come in, he's done a good job. He scored a couple of goals early on. He does, to me, doesn't seem to quite have it if he's to be a top scorer in a top level championship side.
He
He was
just seems
poor
to
on
have
Saturday
found
as
his
well.
level then, hasn't he?
Yeah.
You know, if his level is mid-table kind of championship team, then he does well for that. But, you know, he was starting in all of the games starting off in the season, apart from one where Woodrow started. But then he came on and pretty much changed the game for us. Which game was that?
That was Cardiff at home.
Cardiff at home, yeah. And so he does bring something to the team. You know, he's been in the winning team to start off with these first 4 or 5 games. But, you know, it's kind of good to have him around, certainly. At least if Chris Martin's not fit and Woodrow's not firing in all cylinders.
And I guess we've got to be unanimous in the view that the highlight of Saturday's game was David Button's penalty save against Clayton Donaldson in the first half. To me, is that one of the best penalty saves you've seen from a Fulham goalkeeper? I thought it was outstanding. It was a well-hit penalty from Donaldson.
Yeah, I mean, the only other one in recent memory that comes to mind is when Schwarzer saved a penalty in the last minute from Arteta in the 3-3 at the Emirates, 3 or 4 seasons ago. What a game that was anyway.
Yeah.
I was in the Arsenal game. I was in the Arsenal end for that game, and I remember all through the comeback, we got back to 3-2. I think Berbatov put us ahead, and we were in my dad got some tickets through work, so we were in that middle tier in the posh bit, and I kept my composure all the way through all 3 goals, just like yes, and then that penalty save at the end. We'd played so well, and I thought it was so unjust if Arsenal went and won that game 4-3. And when Arteta missed the penalty, it was the save by Schwartz. I just lost all composure, and I've never darted out of a stadium. Thank God it was Arsenal. It had not been like
Millwall.
Yeah, Millwall or something. There's no way I would have made it back home. But
I was at. I couldn't go to that game because I was at my sister's wedding. I know what you're thinking, bad fan and everything like that. But we managed to find some time to find a dodgy stream to watch it on. But my dad was like, no, I need to get ready for the wedding. So he put it on the radio in his bedroom at the hotel, and the penalty was given. We're waiting, patiently for it to be taken on the TV. And then all of a sudden he runs in with a big smile on his face before the actual penalty's taken, because it's obviously
in a bit of delay.
Completely ruined it for all of us.
But it was an absolutely outstanding save.
Schwartz v Roma as well.
Yeah, I was
Tada.
thinking
Yes.
We've
had
had
a
Van der
couple-
Sar double save.
Oh,
so
yes.
One Pablo,
Angel.
one Pablo Angel.
Yeah.
And am I correct in saying Van der Sar's one of the only ever people to save a Shearer penalty
He missed
as
one
well?
against Sunderland, but I don't know if it was saved. I don't think it was saved. I think he actually missed it.
Oh, did he?
He hasn't missed many.
Because I seem to remember I remember Van der Sar saving a Shearer one back at Loftus Road.
Shearer missed one against Sunderland.
Oh, right, okay.
But I don't know. He didn't miss many. So
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
definitely Van der Sar save.
So we certainly had a few decent people. What were we making of David Button? Is he doing enough to keep Bettinelli out the side, in your opinion, at the moment?
He's not doing anything wrong, in my opinion, really. He definitely brings a bit more experience. It's quite harsh on Bettinelli because we can't really sit around here and go, well, he's done that badly at all. He looks like a decent championship keeper. He's obviously still quite young for a goalkeeper, so there's a potential there. But Button is ready-made replacement for him already.
And I think the main thing was, because we had Lonergan in goal for such a majority of last season, yes, he made a few good saves, like one-on-ones, but he had no command of his penalty area for me, Andy Lonergan.
No.
I think Button's brought about that commanding goalkeeper at the back, telling the defenders what they need to do. And Brentford fans weren't that annoyed that he left, so I was a bit worried.
Yeah, I saw the
Now
same.
He's actually proving that he's actually been a decent signing, and he is keeping Bettinelli out of the side for a good reason.
I reckon they're crying inside.
They signed
definitely.
Dan Bentley, though, didn't they? Dan Bentley's a good keeper. They signed him off Southend.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's basically why they weren't too upset. But there was, he was their player of the season 2 years ago, and he was excellent for them last year, and I think it was more they were okay with it because of who they'd put in to replace him already.
Maybe it's a case of like, you know, when you get dumped or something and you try to be all like brash, like, I'm not upset, it's fine, I'm fine, but you're going home every night to cry. So maybe that's what Brentford fans...
yourself.
Yeah. Other feedback on the new signings, we've now seen them in a couple of games. Johansson made his first start against Birmingham. There's also Hotherbed, who I'm quite liking the name of, and he came on. And obviously Cabana did very well against Blackburn, and he played as a substitute against Birmingham. What are we making of all these? We've got a plethora of number 10s really at the moment, haven't we?
Yeah, I mean, start off with Cabano. At Blackburn, I was really impressed with him. I mean, there wasn't really many attacking chances during the game. He had a chance in the first half, which was a good save from Jason Steele. But he looked promising. As we said earlier, I don't know why he wasn't starting against Birmingham City on the weekend, because he was probably one of our best players apart from Tom Kearney in the Blackburn game for me. So he looks promising. I mean, you can't really judge anyone off how amount of minutes he's played.
No.
Santos Jozabed or Hozabed, however you say his name, I'm not very good with.
There's a Ruiz in there as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
Who knows what his name is?
He's only had substitute appearances, so you don't know what he's like from the start, but he looks very comfortable on the ball. And everyone thought he'd be a number 10, but he looks like he can play sort of a deep line playmaker role. And I won't really say anything about Johansson. I know he had a poor first half against Birmingham, but it's only like one half of football. He could end up being a strong centre midfielder we have. And as his time at Celtic proved, he's always got goals and assists in him, and you need that in the Championship. You need goals from everywhere.
Can he make the step up from the Scottish Premier League?
Well, I'll tell you one person that made a step up to the Scottish Premier League, flipping Moussa Dembele, bossed the show.
Yeah, they absolutely ran the show. A perfect hat-trick as such.
Was it a perfect hat-trick?
Hat-trick, yeah.
And actually, I think one of the more impressive things from Dembele that game, that assist, I think, for the fourth goal, the pass through to, can't remember who scored the goal on the end
Armstrong.
of it. Was it Sinclair? Was it Armstrong?
Sinclair scored the third and Armstrong got the fifth.
Right, yeah. I mean, that was absolutely exquisite.
What's the score? I actually don't know what the score
It was
is.
5-1 to Celtic.
5-1.
It was just trying to keep one eye on the derby, one eye on the other derby, like the old firm and old Manchester pub, because like one screen was there and then there's the big projector of the Manchester derby here. So
Right, yeah.
Changing faces to have a look. But yeah, I left at half time because the pub was just too rammed. It was just, and it was pouring with rain outside as well. But I mean, luckily I didn't miss any goals in the Manchester derby. But yeah, Moussa Dembele, I mean, he started off only scoring from the spot, and I was like, is he going to score from open play anytime soon? But he looks like he's spurred on and should be a great striker for them, along with the likes of Padgett Roberts and Tierney in the side.
Lee Griffiths.
Yeah, Lee
Great
Griffiths.
player.
Again, they will just walk the league.
Yeah,
Well, it was a bit of a surprising transfer when it all happened. Moussa Dembele moving to Celtic over the summer. And my first thought when it happened, I was furious. I was like, oh, flipping Moussa Dembele. He could have gone to Spurs, could have gone to Chelsea. They all seem to be rumoring into him. Why would you go to Celtic? That seems like a sideways step. But I read an article, one of the kind of Craven Cottage news rowdy, hammy-endy websites, and it made a very good case as to why Celtic was a good move for him. You know, he'd play Champions League football. Admittedly, the quality of football he'd be playing in Scotland would be pretty low, but not a very physical league. He probably won't get any injuries. Have 2 seasons there, score a hatful of goals, and then probably get the big move he wants. But he was the first player to score a hat-trick in an Old Firm derby in 50 years. Which is incredible, really, for a 20-year-old in his first go.
It is, and a lot of people say that going into an Old Firm is the old lion's den and going into the most terrifying atmosphere in football, but it didn't seem to faze him at all.
No, it didn't seem to faze him anyway. Anyway, away from Scotland, I don't know when this turned into the SBL show. Elsewhere in the Championship, I mentioned Huddersfield. Are they real contenders now? 5 wins, 1 draw out of 6. They'd surely be one of the poorest teams to ever make it up to the Premier League, one of the most pony teams. Like, I'm thinking like Blackpool, Bournemouth, maybe even Wigan back in the days. But Huddersfield in the Premier League seems like a genuine prospect at the moment.
Oh yeah, it does. I mean, obviously they're still unbeaten, and I mean, they're going to be, obviously, you can tell they're going to be this season's surprise package. So you had Sheffield Wednesday last season, who've actually been really poor this season.
Yeah, surprisingly.
Get promotion. And then you also had Brentford the season before, because they got top 6 as well. I think I'd say Huddersfield should, really, on how they're playing, should be able to get top 6. Because no one else has really played well whose sides we thought. So like Norwich are just really inconsistent. They'll beat a team 3-0 then lose to Birmingham 3-0. Villa, they've got an amazing attack, but that's all they seem to have. You know, they've got some McCormack, Kodjia, Ayew, Rudy Gestead. And I think it's got to do mainly with the manager. he worked under Klopp at Dortmund. He managed their under 21s.
He managed their second team.
Yeah, their second team.
Well, a lot of people seem to attribute the success a lot to this. I can't remember his name. It's Wagner, isn't it?
Yeah, David Wagner.
So a lot of people seem to attribute Klopp's success at Dortmund to him as much as Klopp. So it's clearly Huddersfield have got some pedigree going. Do you think they'd be the poorest Premier League club if they made it up, as in kind of terms of stature and like their facilities and fans, etc.?
Barnsley were up there at one point, weren't they?
Barnsley. Yeah.
That's going back a long time.
Huddersfield's fans are tuning in because that was stature and club, like they're really crap.
I know. It just sounds to me bizarre. But then again, Bournemouth in the Premier League still sounds
Don't diss Bournemouth.
a little bit bizarre. Well, I remember going down there a couple of seasons ago and they gave us a football lesson
Yeah, definitely.
on Boxing Day that day. Anyway, let's move away from that. And obviously it's our first show here on Fulhamish today. And I asked on Twitter about good or bad Fulham debuts. Are there any that spring to mind for you guys, either like particularly good, they completely came in and bossed it, or absolutely had a mare? My first thought was Matt Smith against Reading, who just got a red card within about half an hour.
Yeah, it was bad enough that we were at Reading away, and then Matt Smith got sent off.
Yeah.
And that was a truly terrible debut.
That was one of the Maggots games?
that was,
as well?
that was McGath was there because we had Birmingham away either the next week or the week or 2 weeks later. So that was my move-in day for uni. So
Right, okay.
luckily I didn't have to go. And, not having to go to Reading away is a good thing as it is. Having an excuse to not go was brilliant, and to not see that game was great. I was getting the updates on my phone. I was like, I'm just not going to look at my phone for the rest of the day because I don't want to. The first one that came to mind for me was Rafik Elishe against Peterborough in the FA Cup. Came off Breda Hangland. And then he made Craig McEl-Smith look like Luis Suarez, and then he gave away a penalty.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the first one that came to mind for me.
Did he play? Was that his only appearance?
I think
No,
he
he
made
made a
like
couple
2 or
more.
3 because they had like the Algerian fan club who came along to see him. But yeah, because if you remember on the Facebook page, it was just Rafik Elishe is the greatest centre back of all time. From like a load of Algerians posted on the page.
The one that sticks out for me is Ahmed Elrich versus Liverpool.
Wow.
When I don't actually remember him touching the ball the whole game, apart from with 2 minutes ago he had an open goal and skied it.
He hit the scoreboard.
Yeah,
He
good
actually
going.
fully hit the scoreboard.
We should rename it the Ahmed Elrich scoreboard.
At Anfield.
He's had a very big downward career since then because didn't he get arrested for like gun possession in Australia?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he's in jail. So is John Pansel.
Yeah, I never really knew what happened with that.
Prison buddies.
I never really knew what happened with that John Pansel situation.
I can
but-
set up a little team with Lionel Messi and they'll be all right.
Can we now rename Fulham like the bad boy team or
Yeah,
something
exactly.
now?
Well, maybe we're finally getting the reputation we need to strike fear into our opponents when we come along. The
debut,
other one
though.
that was suggested actually was last season, which was old Zakaria Labiad. And I can't remember which side he came on against for the last 25 minutes. Literally a rabbit in headlights. Looked like he'd never touched a football in his life. And he was really bigged up and just seemed to
Yeah, because
shy away.
he was really promising when he was at Sporting Lisbon. And
Is that Football Manager talking?
yeah, he was literally like amazing on Football Manager. And then but then the majority of people who are wonders on Football Manager turn out to be not the greatest types of players.
Cherno Samba.
Oh yeah.
Was it Laurie Dallavalle?
Oh yeah.
who
he
was a
good.
wonder kid on Football Manager in the Fulham ranks and never
but
really made it.
If Woodrow doesn't make it, he'll be one of them because last year he was one of the best players on the game.
You could tell they're students.
Yeah. Enough time to
there
know
was someone who
the.
scored a hat trick for Bayer Leverkusen on the weekend, Pojan Parlo, what his name was. And I mean, last year he was amazing, so he might actually be proved to one of the Football Manager wonder kids who are actually any good.
We know we have this unnamed statistician. Well, not unnamed, Craig Klein, but no one really knows who he is. Do you reckon it's just a student over in America playing Football Manager and just
Well, it is the
suggesting
perfect
signings?
yeah. Yeah,
Really
I
like
it's-
that. That would
it's
give me
stats
hope
look
in
good.
life.
I imagine him like, well, you see the scene in Moneyball where like it's Brad Pitt in that room with that room of old geezers and stuff. And I imagine this Craig Klein, brash American. Yeah, I know how to do this. No, you don't need that player. You don't need that player. I've got the system. And clearly Fulham's bought it.
Well, if we look at it for this, if you just look at the signings he's made this summer, there hasn't exactly been a horrific transfer yet.
No.
So you
No, by
can't
any stretch of the
you
imagination.
can't really diss the whole system. I know we've missed out on a few key targets, like the guy from Manchester United whom Mourinho suggested should come.
Oh, James Wilson.
No, it's
It-
Pereira,
it was
wasn't
Pereira.
Oh, yeah, that's the one.
I hope James Wilson doesn't come.
it? No, it's not.
After
He's
his
gone to
dive
Derby.
versus
He went to
Brighton.
Derby, yeah. But no, I don't. There isn't. Everyone was like going crazy, like back Jokanovic, but like he hasn't really made a bad decision yet. I mean, the worst one was Johansson, who's played like 20 minutes,
Yeah.
and you can't really judge a player off that. So I think, because was he in charge for the January transfer window last?
I believe he was. I believe Michael Mardle was a very stats-based transfer.
Okay, we mentioned Labyad. We can just disregard him. But like Michael Mardle, he made his debut in the QPR away, didn't he?
I believe so. It was around that time.
Yeah, and then we played 3 at the back of that game, and it was QPR, so we just win anyway. But he wasn't probably no signing, who of course we made permanent this year. So I don't think it's as bad as people were making out when it first got announced.
Well, there was 13 players in the squad at the weekend that were new signings from the summer, not including Michael Mardle, which technically was a new signing.
Yeah.
But, can't be that bad. I mean, unless he's like asked to sign 100 players and he only got 13 of them.
Well, I guess it's going to be one. I guess if you do go for this stats-based approach, and we're all speculating, really, we don't fully know exactly how much input he has, but I guess he's always going to have a percentage of players that, like any manager that you pick, that just frankly don't work out. And I'm sure there might be one or two that have come in this summer who actually don't ever play for us very much or do make too much impact.
It's like Spurs or Sunderland's transfer policy, which is let's sign everyone that's available and hope one of them's good.
Yeah, exactly. I'd much rather probably be using stats to avoid like mistakes like that.
Well, yeah, because stats wouldn't exactly suggest you to sign Moussa Sissoko for £30 million.
No stat in the world would ever suggest that.
He had like a good tournament, but like, did you not watch him last season at Newcastle?
It was a disgrace.
It was bizarre. There's a whole bizarre series of transfers that Sissoko deal, and how Everton pulled out and all sorts.
Well, it's not like football to be crazy or anything.
But it
like
was,
that.
like I'm a big James McCarthy fan as a point of interest, but to reject Moussa Sissoko for James
a
McCarthy,
very niche fandom that.
James McCarthy was covering the ground before Kante made it cool.
I imagine you'd have like a whole mural on your wall just to James McCarthy back
with
at
a
home.
Six Island shirt on. That's pretty much the whole room.
Well, that nicely leads me on to something that I saw in the week. I posted a photo on our Twitter, which I'll give a plug now, at Fulhamish Pod. I hope all you three gentlemen have given that a follow. Which is this fan in Hungary who has basically redone his entire back garden and has taken the famous sign off the Johnny Haynes stand, the one that says Fulham Football Club, and it's got the stripes and the crest in the middle, and has erected it above his garden patio. And he's also said on this Facebook post, which is in that group, which is a very hit and miss group. I don't know if we could...
I'm just going to go for a miss group. I'm not going to put a hit in there. It's a miss.
But he's promised that if you go to his house, it's free food and drink 365 days of the year. I reckon he might get a couple of people take him up on that offer.
It could be different from the line before the game, that's for sure.
But yeah, it's certainly an interesting pre-match ritual.
I'm quite upset because I was actually in Hungary this summer.
Oh, right.
He didn't, post this until after I'd unfortunately returned, but I probably could have gone and taken Ballint up on his offer.
Yeah, I was trying to work out if there'd been any other crazy like Fulham installations, and I had a look, and I can't find it online. If anyone can find the link to this, it would be brilliant. It's this guy that made an entire model of Craven Cottage in his back garden with like individual seats in the Hammersmith end. It was like every intricate detail. Did you guys see this, or was this just my imagination?
Did you just have a very strange dream?
I might have. But
it sounds like that Lego man who makes all the stadiums out of Lego.
There's also that one who did Cardiff's FA Cup run in Lego and stop motion. Did you see that one?
No, I didn't. But some people have loads of time, don't they?
Yeah.
Do you think that's what this is? These people that make these kind of dedications to their clubs just got maybe, frankly, too much time on their hands?
It's quite nice, isn't it? Big fan
I
of
wouldn't
it.
mind now in my back garden, but I don't know where.
Yeah, I don't know where it would fit.
One, I don't think I could be bothered to do it, and two, I don't know where I find the time. Even though I'm a student, so it means I have free time all the time.
I mean, it's pretty impressive. It looks like he's stolen the damn thing and shipped it over to Hungary.
Yeah, I mean, it's excellent. He's done a good job, in fairness. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if it would fit in West London, but maybe when you have this kind of space and time, I suppose, then why not? They love a mural though over in Eastern Europe. There's loads of. We were on the train between between Budapest and Belgrade, and there's loads and loads of Red Star murals all over Serbia. You see them as you go in on the train, and Partizan murals. It's mad. So maybe he's just fitting in with the locals.
With the Eastern European bloc.
Yeah.
Right, so we're going to wrap it up, I think, in a minute. It's been a very good opening. I think we've had a better debut than any of the people we mentioned previously, the Matt Smiths, the Rafa Kalishes, the Zakaria Labiads of the world. And we're going to finish every show with an idea actually suggested by Farrell, which is this Fulhamish dedication where we dedicate the podcast to a particular listener. So if you want to get in touch and have the podcast dedicated to you one week, just give us a tweet at FulhamishPod. I'll plug it again. You can also send us an email, fulhamishpod@gmail.com. Farrell, who are we picking this week?
So this week we've chosen Chad Perez, who's an Australian Paralympic athlete who has just won a bronze in the T13 100 metres final, running a personal best of 11.09 seconds.
It's pretty impressive. Are there any other Fulham Olympians, apart from maybe footballers, that played before them? I don't know of any, but you'd think the chances are that we seem to win so many flipping medals nowadays that surely one or two of them have got to have a tie-in with Fulham. He was actually behind Jason Smith, who is the Irish Usain Bolt of the Paralympics, which just sounds bizarre, quite utterly, doesn't it? But a phenomenal achievement, really.
The White Tiger, Chad Perez, isn't he?
Yeah.
The White Tiger, as he's known.
But I mean, it's a
Did
crazy...
James McCarthy tell you that one?
James McCarthy let me know, yeah.
So he's nominated Breda Hanglin. That's what we're going to do in this Fulhamish dedication. Is obviously you nominate yourself to be dedicated, but also you've got to pick a player. And I'm thinking of this like a reverse Room 101. So you nominate a player and you put them into the box. And then once that player has been nominated, you can't ever pick that player again. And maybe I'll put this list of players on some sort of internet website. I sound like I'm back in the 1980s with that. When we maybe get around to building that, you know, we're only just set up the Twitter account, quite frankly.
Early days.
But he said he started getting into football and following Fulham, watching the games at midnight on a Saturday. And Breda Hangland was one of the first players that he loved watching, and also it was the first Fulham kit he got with Hangland on the back. That must have cost quite a lot in the letters, actually, department, with old Hangland. And he also wanted to mention his great-grandfather. He's not putting him into the box, so he's still available for selection. Who's Bruce Clark, who played for Fulham as a right-back in the 1930s.
It's quite cool.
Do you have any relations that have ever graced the hallowed turf playing for Fulham or anything like that?
My brother once did a charity game at the Cottage, not playing for Fulham, a number of years ago, and he put himself up front and managed to score a goal to his, but his delight was short-lived because it was flagged for offside.
Oh, gutted.
To this day, he still talks about it, and I was there, and I will say officially, he was definitely offside.
Well, I mean, Dom, you've now got the honour of scoring a goal at Craven Cottage.
Footballer in my family.
I mean, it's a shame you were blindfolded for the whole thing. You never got to see your goal go in.
Yeah, I've only just seen it from a video, but I never actually physically saw it hit the back of it. I mean, I heard the cheer because like, a load of my friends just ran down to the front to have a look. And I mean, yeah, I can just say, yeah, I've scored a penalty. A good penalty at Craven Cottage.
Blindfolded as well. Well, I got to play at Craven Cottage in the summer, actually. And I managed to score a goal in the last minute. And honestly, it was a travesty that it was ever a goal. I don't know where the goalkeeper was, but it was the most floated cross in history. I was in acres of space. I think you get shocked when you play at 11 aside after a while, and especially on a pitch where the grass is so good. And you realise quite how unfit you are when you play on a professional pitch. I think the defenders had given up by this point, but still, it was a tap-in, but they all count, and I managed to get my goal at Craven Cottage. But anyway, we're going to wrap that up for this week for Fulhamish. Thank you very much for listening. Please, if you enjoyed the podcast, give us a subscribe on iTunes or whatever podcast store you use, and also follow on Twitter at FulhamishPod. You can get involved each week. We're going to be asking some of the questions that we're going to discuss on the show, and the podcast is going to go up after every weekend match day. Probably on a Monday night if I can manage to drag some guests in. But gentlemen, thank you very much for appearing this week, to Jack, to Dom and to Farrell.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time. Cheers.